Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you found those sessions very informative. I know I took away some really good nuggets of information myself. Amidst all of that 2019, we've had a bit of social unrest and disruption as well. All Americans should have the opportunity to earn their success, rise on their own merit, and live their own American dream. But far too many and far too often, the opportunity to obtain an education, secure a job, start a business, and provide for your family is determined by the color of your skin. These systemic inequalities hurt individuals, communities, our economy, and our society. I'd like to welcome to the virtual stage Mr. Rick Wade of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today to discuss how the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Equality of Opportunity Initiative will let you know how you can be a part of the solution. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Siobhan, for that kind introduction. Welcome to the world of technical difficulties. I am here, not visual, but certainly in voice. And I appreciate the chance to speak with this very important audience today in a city of Atlanta, where I used to live. And I'm glad sort of to be back home, albeit virtually. I was thinking just this week that how some 57 years ago, 250,000 Americans convened here in Washington, D.C., where I am, here in our nation's capital, for the historic March on Washington, punctuated by Atlanta's own Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., his famous I Have a Dream speech, which we all recall. But often overlooked a half century later is the reality that the full name of that gathering was actually the March on Washington for Jobs and for Freedom. The focus and emphasis on closing the stark gap that existed in America in employment, prosperity, and economic opportunity between white and Black Americans. And here's the deal, more than a half century later, while we've made some progress and progress we've made, that stark gap still remains. And the work to close it remains as important, as urgent as it ever did before. I grew up in South Carolina, and I recall in the early 60s, living in a small rural town and experiencing what we considered legal segregation, not having a chance to attend an integrated school until middle school. And I remember vividly having to go to the doctor's office, and there was a colored only side, and then there was the other white side in the doctor's office. And I went over to play with a young white boy and got disciplined by my mother and chastised by the receptionist. And I remember vividly going upstairs to in the movie theaters. And I say that to say that in as much as we have made progress and progress we have made, the legal constructs of racial segregation that existed then in the 1960s, some are gone, but the remnants of that segregation still lingers today. Still today, the opportunity to obtain an education, to secure a job, to start a business, or simply provide for your family is often determined by the color of your skin. For decades, Black unemployment rates have been consistently twice as high as white unemployment rates. Black students are twice as likely to attend high poverty schools than their white peers. And Black business owners still struggle even today to access capital, much needed capital for their business ventures. And additionally, Black Americans are more likely than whites to be arrested, to be convicted, and to be sentenced, making it even more difficult and sometimes impossible to re-enter the job market and build a new and better life. One of the partnerships that I've built is with here at the U.S. Chambers with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And they're absolutely right in their report, a research report that they've done called The Business Case for Racial Equity. And they stated, and I quote, they remind us that the persistent racial disparities that we see today did not happen by accident. They didn't happen by accident, but they arose from a long history of deliberate policies based on race and have been perpetuated by biases that remain. Systemic inequalities simply hurt individuals, hurt our communities, our economy, and our society. We all witnessed the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on and on and on. The pandemic that we're experiencing now and the corresponding economic crisis has thrust all of these issues into the national spotlight again. And I believe that the country is now at a significant turning point. And it is time for policymakers and business leaders, for all people of goodwill, to capitalize on this momentum and enact real change to ensure that the enduring inequality of opportunity rooted in racial bias remains in the past. And so the United States Chamber of Commerce, the largest business organization in the world, I'm very proud that the Chamber has stepped up and risen up to address what we call the equality of opportunity in America. And I think our President Suzanne Clark said it best when she said, and I quote, "As our nation undertakes a necessary conversation about systemic racism, we will listen thoroughly and thoughtfully and lead solutions to help ensure Black Americans and people of color have greater opportunities to succeed in the American enterprise system," end quote. And so we did that. Back in June of this year, we convened local voices, a steering committee that was comprised of local chambers and business organizations across the country, corporations, in the National Black Chambers of Commerce, Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, Pan-Asian, all of these entities. Over 500 organizations joined us and signed on what we call our Equality of Opportunity Agenda Initiative. Based on research and data, we were instrumental in building this Equality of Opportunity Agenda. Following listening, conversations, and learning, we now have built a very robust and exhaustive platform, again, driven by data and research, informing our work as we move forward. And as I mentioned earlier, the data and research are clear. I talked about Black students twice as likely to attend high poverty schools than their white peers. Think about it. Black Americans represent 12% of the American workforce, but only 9% of workers in high earning management and professional positions. Black Americans represent 12% of the labor force, but only some 9% of business owners. The 2.6 million Black businesses that exist in America, while they are sole proprietors, they're very important parts of the fabric of our society. In a recent research piece that we did with MetLife Corporation, we found that some 66% of Black businesses are concerned about permanently closing as a result of the pandemic, and we must solve for this significant challenge in our society. And we know that Black Americans have markedly worse health outcomes than white Americans. Black patients are 2 to 3 times as likely to die of heart disease and stroke. Black CEOs on the corporate front, less than 1% of Fortune 500 CEOs are Black. In the area of wealth, disparities are stark. At $171,000, the net worth of a typical white family is nearly 10 times greater than that of the average Black American, only $17,150 a year. So I make these observations to paint the picture of what these challenges are. And so what we've done now is put together a platform that seeks to provide the policy solutions as well as the business private sector solutions to address equality of opportunity. In the area of education, for example, supporting more equitable educational funding, including student-based approaches, improving K through 12 education accountability, expanding K through 12 school choice options and promoting career and college readiness, closing the digital education divide, which has been front and center as a result of the pandemic, where we're seeing students drop in their performance because they don't have broadband access or access to digital devices. We must work to close the broadband divide, the digital divide. And obviously improving secondary education transparency, some of the issues that we are putting forth in our education agenda. In the area of employment, for example, promoting more diversity in corporate leadership, we must look at workforce diversity, not just in terms of frontline workers and employees, but C-suite and also corporate boards. And we're leading and we'll be announcing an initiative soon to address issues and challenges related to corporate board diversity. Utilizing data, more data to improve workforce diversity. Promoting investment in opportunity zones and ensuring that opportunity zones have the kinds of outcomes that we believe that they can. Supporting pay-for-performance job training programs in areas with high unemployment, and expanding available and quality and affordable child care and health care. Some of the things that we're leaning in and leading on as we think about employment solutions. And in the area of entrepreneurship, if I could mention, we talked about the 2.6 million Black businesses in America. We think there are tremendous opportunities to be gained if we can connect them more to corporate supply chains. And so we're focusing on, with a big priority and a focus around supply chain diversity, improving the process for minority business certifications, eliminating unnecessary occupational licenses, and supporting the efforts of the Minority Business Development Agency, incidentally, the only agency in the federal government whose sole responsibility is focused on strengthening and supporting and growing minority enterprises across America, but it's one of the least funded agencies in our country. And so we will be focusing on these and many other areas in criminal justice, as well as health and in wealth, putting forth not just legislation, and I'm proud to say that we've already endorsed over a dozen bills on Capitol Hill at this moment, and we intend to do more, putting the chamber muscle behind policy solutions to close and address these inequalities that exist in our society. And it's very clear, obviously, that the business community, independent of policy and the policy process and the legislative process, should and can do more. And we're proud to see that so many companies have stepped up and not just made pledges, but they're putting those pledges to action. And that's what we'll be focusing on, driving real action, moving beyond conversation and dialogue and moving into real action. And so what's next with regards to this equality of opportunity agenda? We are excited that when we first launched this initiative, over 500 state, local chambers and other business organizations signed a pledge. And that pledge was twofold. One, to endorse the principles of equality and to create the kind of dialogue that we need to bring more people at the table to address equality of opportunity. And then two, put forth your own agenda. And I've been so pleased that your chamber and other chambers across the country have stepped up in such significant ways and joined this movement to move from a dialogue and conversation to real action at the state and local level. And so we'll continue to put forth policy recommendations, private sector solutions. We have convened and hosted over 100 meetings and events and summits since we launched this initiative back in June. And we're excited about where we're going. And here's the deal. Together, we know that we can and we must turn this moment into a movement, this dialogue into nationwide action. And we all working together, committed, working together, we can reclaim and reaffirm the American promise of equality, of opportunity for all of America. Thank you for having me today, for this chance to talk with you. I look forward to walking this journey with the Dunwoody Chamber and with other state and local chambers and leaders and stakeholders across America. This is truly how we build equality of opportunity, by working together. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. We are very excited to be your partner and partner with the U.S. Chamber on this initiative and many others. And please reach out if we may assist you moving forward. and help get information out, or whatever we can do to be a part of the initiative. So I want to thank you for joining us today. And for everyone else who's watching this current broadcast, you may wish to go back over to sessions. We're going to have the Georgia Chamber joining us to talk about policy, as well as Brookfield Properties and Perimeter Mall joining us to discuss purchasing perspectives and how that has changed with COVID. I look forward to seeing you in those sessions.